Hey, hi. My name's Ali. I'm an ecologist. I work at Dorset Council, and I've been in this role for about 7 years. I'll just put this slide in here because different people have different kind of views on what an ecologist is. I thought this was quite good. Yeah, so there's obviously the David Attenborough kind of this is wildlife ecology. But really the most realistic thing is the one in the corner, which is standing in waders or wellies in a river or a ditch, making notes and looking at British habitats and British wildlife. So what is an ecologist? So we learn about the relationships between animals and the landscape and how they inhabit a particular environment or habitat, and then understand how they are impacted on development work. So like planning work, so buildings and things like that. In this role as a local government ecologist, we have two main roles. The first is to carry out ecological surveys and provide ecological advice to Dorset Council teams, such as the bridge team, highways, or the ranger service. And when these teams are carrying out work, such as bridge repairs or building new roads or fixing roads or building or converting council-owned schools or properties or offices, or improving rights of way, our team, the ecology team, will carry out ecological surveys to find out what species and habitats are there and advise how they can carry out their work to ensure that protected species and their habitats are safeguarded and that the work is carried out following wildlife legislation. We rarely see the protected species such as bats and water voles, but we find signs and we're able to identify their suitable habitat. Another part of what we do is reviewing and assessing ecological reports. And these are sent in as part of planning applications, and these can be anything from householders putting in planning permission to convert their attics, or it could be a developer building 50 houses on some nice, interesting grassland. The biodiversity is a material consideration in planning applications, so this needs to be considered in planning decisions. And our role is to make sure that the right surveys for protected species and their habitat have been carried out by the ecological consultants who are employed by the developers, and make sure that the protected species and their habitats are considered and safeguarded, and that appropriate wildlife and habitat legislation is followed. So in Dorset, the mechanism for this is through the Dorset Biodiversity Appraisal Protocol. So there's no typical day, but there's a lot of desk-based work. We work with colleagues and partners and consultants, developers, and we advise on wildlife. We have meetings, we look at maps, we spend a lot of time looking at species records and data, but we sometimes carry out surveys and site visits and training to other teams. So our responsibility is to ensure that wildlife is safeguarded and sites are left in a better state after development. So the main thing is that you would need to have an interest and knowledge in UK habitats. So maybe like acid or calcareous grassland or heathland or woodlands, rivers, and the flora and fauna that's found in those areas. You need to have skills in identifying protected species, so like newts, birds, bats, waterfowls, and also identifying the field signs, so finding nests or footprints or poo, like otter spraint, like in this picture. And you could specialize in one area, or you could be generalist. You'd need to have survey skills, so that's survey skills for reptiles, birds, dormice, habitats, transects. So there's all sorts of different fields and survey skills that you can have. There's so many different survey techniques to get experience in, and so you're looking at activity as well as presence and absence. Other skills would include kind of being confident working outdoors and on building sites or near rivers and water, and sometimes at height if you're looking at nest boxes and bat boxes and things like that. You need to be good at problem solving and have a curious, questioning mind. Skills in analysis and reviewing and report writing and being pragmatic are also useful. It's good to keep up to date with environmental legislation and site designations like SSIs, SPAs, to kind of get an understanding about that and wildlife legislation. but mostly it's about being passionate. And most people in ecology and conservation really care about wildlife and the habitats, and that's really the driving force behind any career in this field. There's like a tradition, you can do the traditional ways of going into ecology or conservation. So, doing some science-based A levels, doing ecology or conservation, environmental sciences degrees. But there's also other ways, like you can do apprenticeships. If you get a lot of field work and experience, lots of voluntary work, you can work your way up through in that way, building your species ID and survey techniques, lots of volunteering, and you can work towards your class licenses. So that's special licenses to handle or disturb or carry out different surveys for some species. And also just get involved in lots of training, lots of local groups, any workshops that are going on to do with species in your area or in an area that you're interested in. My personal experience, I didn't have a traditional start into ecology and conservation. I did a mixture of A levels, sociology, Spanish and film, and then worked in administrative roles and into finance banking for a little bit. But my love of outdoors and nature led me to having a bit of a change and worked in horticulture for a few years, and then a conservation field trip abroad. It was an internship, kind of reignited a passion and really I started on my career in ecology. And then spent lots of time when I came home, doing lots of volunteering, working with local conservation groups, and went to uni at 25 as a mature student. And then I did internships and placements in my summer holidays at uni, working on islands as long-term volunteers. And this led to a traineeship with the Wildlife Trust after uni, and then had roles such as field assistant ecologist, and project officer, and then started this job, like I said, about 7 years ago. I'm also a member of the Chartered Institute for Ecology and Environmental Management, and I've done lots of training over the years and continue doing lots of continued professional developments and make sure that ID skills are up to scratch and survey techniques and things like that are up to scratch. So just a bit of advice that I would give if you wanted to get into ecology or conservation is just get as much experience as possible. UK-based experience is good. Volunteer with your local groups, your local wildlife trusts, National Trust conservation volunteers, any botany groups or bat groups, whatever you're interested in. If you've got a particular passion or interest in a particular species or habitat, then you can specialize in one area, or you can be a generalist. I'm pretty generalist, but I do specialize in birds when I can, and keep up to date with all the environmental news, government announcements, and local groups and what's going on in your area. And there's a few links to volunteering groups or additional kind of places to find more information and keep up to date with things and training and things like that.